What is up, guys? Welcome to Diving Garage. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you the proven methods used by engine builders to measure your engine cylinder bore, all while not using expensive tools. Let's dive in. And today we're working on our $500 budget build challenge. This 283 small block Chevy. Done a ton of videos on this already and other budget building techniques. Check the description below for links to that. What we'll be doing today is measuring that cylinder bore, and all we really need are two tools. We need a micrometer, and when you buy these, they also come with a standard. More on that in a minute. And we're gonna need a dial bore gauge. So what these tools are, they work together. You can't use one without the other. Well, I guess that's not true. You can use this without the dial bore gauge, but in our case, we need both. You use the micrometer to set the dial bore gauge, and then you bring the dial bore gauge over to the engine, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so this here is our micrometer we're gonna be using today, and this is a 3 to 4 inch micrometer. So all you have to do to know which size you'll need is, if you want, just Google your engine and stock bore size, and that'll give you an answer. So because ours is 3/850, we want one that can measure between 3 and 4 inches, because that's right in the middle there. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is just get this lightly clamped into the vise. And actually, let me flip that around. And then we're gonna grab our standard. So this is super important for any micrometer. As you can see there, it's labeled 3 inches. And that's because this is what you use to calibrate this. So you could just try and use this micrometer as is. Maybe you set it up before, maybe you haven't. But either way, every time I'm going to do any sort of measuring, I recalibrate it using the standard. It's pretty easy. All you do is make sure you unlock your mic, back it up, and you want to fit this lightly in there. Just like that, so you can hear that clicking. And then what you do is you come over to the reading side and you read it and you make sure that it's actually correct. All right, and from this angle, you got a bit better view of what's going on. So we can see here that the 0 on the inner wheel and the 0 on the outer wheel don't match. And what we need to do is calibrate it, because if we don't, all of our measurements going forward aren't gonna be correct, it won't be accurate. And that'll be the difference between a well-running engine and an engine that doesn't run very well. So what we can do is use a little adjustment tool that comes with each micrometer. And there's a little post on this front side here, and there's a hole on the back. And all we do is line those up and give the inner wheel a spin until the zeros match. Just like that. So now our micrometer is calibrated and it's ready to use. Okay, now we can move over to the dial bore gauge. We're gonna get the main body out, get the actual gauge out, and we're gonna look down here for what size your bore is. So we got a 3/850, right? So we're gonna get out the 3/8, and then there is a 0.05 spacer. And I'm actually gonna also throw in the 0.1, so that we can get a little more squish on the gauge there. And then you stack all those things up together and it looks like this. So there's two ways you can go about the next step. The first way you can do it is you can just set the whole setup here, and then you have the end hanging off and you can rotate that whichever way you like. And then you get the micrometer and you kind of sort of like float it, and you have to squeeze it on there. That to me is a little tough. What I like to do is leave the micrometer in the vise, set it, lock it down, then go back to the actual bore gauge, put that in this space here. That's what we'll be measuring, and then lock that down to 0, and then you're good to go. So I'll show you how that looks. All right, the first step is loosen up this little collar so we can move this ring around. And we're gonna put this span in, or this setup in this span here, so we can get them synced up. And so when you're doing this, what you're gonna be doing is putting it in there, and then you're gonna be moving it up and down. So that way you can find the highest point, or I guess the point where it pauses on the dial gauge here. Sorry, let me explain this first before before I'm trying to do it and explain at the same time. We're gonna put this in the micrometer, and we're going to find where the needle hovers at what will be the 0, which is the highest point or the tightest point. And then we're gonna move this collar so that way the 0 matches that point, and then we can lock it down and we can know we have our measurement right. So now let's do it, so I can focus on one thing at a time. So as you're doing this, make sure you hold it right here where my left hand is, place it in there, but then let go with your right. You don't want to be holding this while you're trying to measure it. It's gonna throw off your readings. Okay, so we see how the needle is kind of over here, but our 0 is way over there. So let's spin this around. Let's try again. All right, a little too far. Oh, I might have nailed it right there. Let's see, let's check again. Yep, that's it right there. make sure you take your time doing this. You want to make sure this is spec'd in correctly, so that way all of your other measurements are good to go. And so now we know that the dial bore gauge setup is set up to 3.8750, which is the spec we're looking for. And we're going to measure it a few different places to make sure we have the best idea of what's actually going on here with this engine, or any engine, whatever you're measuring. And so we're going to put this in and measure about an inch down. Let's say left and right as you're looking at the engine. Measure about an inch down, measure about halfway down the bore, and then all the way at the end of the bore, right? And then rotate it 90 degrees. So now it's, as you're looking at the engine vertical, do the same thing. So you're gonna wanna take 6 measurements per cylinder. So that way you can know if it's round, oval, egg-shaped, whatever it may be, and you can know what you're working with. All right, so now we got all that measured out. Make sure you're taking good notes as you're measuring your engine. In this case, our engine is about 7 thou larger than stock. So what does that mean? That means it's a little worn out. You know, for this 283, I'm really not surprised. Now, normally on an engine like this, you'd see that, look at the spec, see that the spec actually calls for a 2 thou out of rounds limit. You send it off to get bored. But this is the budget build. We ain't doing any of that. All I wanted to do is make sure you guys knew exactly how to do it. Look at your results, make sure you can take good notes, get accurate measurements, so that way you can know how to do it for your engine. But as for this engine, we're gonna keep on trucking, because that's what you do with the budget build. You just freaking send it. And if you're curious what happens next in this engine build, check out this video right here. We're gonna go over piston ring gap for NA and boosted applications and get them all installed, get this thing down to a short block. That's it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Catch you next time.